Happen Pharmaceuticals in association with Higher Secondary Principals Forum.
Hello students and welcome to the class of Secretarial Practice. We are now starting the third session of the Secretarial Correspondence with banks, and in this session we will be talking about the new concepts in the banking sector, the emerging of new concepts in the banking sector, the new concepts which has been emerged and how it is helping the society as a whole, how it is helping the people as a whole. So, we will be talking here in this chapter about the e-banking and the different concepts which are emerged along with the e-banking in order to help the society, help the people to be comfortable with the banking sector. Along with that, what precautions secretary will have to take while drafting with the banks and the circumstances in which secretary will have to write letters to the bankers. New concepts of the banking. Of late, if you try to see, lots of changes has taken place in the banking sector. The first change, the major change which has actually shown the advancement in the banking sector is e-banking. Many people should not understand earlier initially when this e-banking concept was introduced, and many people used to get confused with that. E-banking, in the simple words, electronic banking, which has taken a giant step in the banking sector, a huge step in the banking sector. The banking sector has developed on a very big way because of the e-banking. The e-banking has actually taken the economy to the greater heights. The e-banking has actually helped the advancement of the technology. The virtual banking is possible today because of e-banking, which means the customer, without approaching the bank, without going to the door of the bank, can do the banking activities with the help of the technology which is available, and that is called as e-banking, that is called as a electronic banking. So what are the things that has happened because of e-banking? What are the changes that has happened? What are the changes that we are experiencing today because of the e-banking, because of the electronic banking? Those people who know about the banking sector the few decades back. And if we try to compare the banking activities those days and the banking activities today, there is a big, huge difference in that. So what things has happened because of e-banking? If we try to say, what are the advantages of the e-banking? The good things that has happened because of e-banking is anytime banking. Today, if you try to see, those days, there used to be a timing for the banking. 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. After that, no banking, or before 10 a.m., no banking. It was only during this particular time you can do your banking transactions. But now, anytime banking, you can do banking activities 24/7. Midnight, suddenly you remember you have to make some payment. Midnight, suddenly you can get up from the sleep, and with the help of your phone, you can do your transactions. This is possible today. Payments to be made to someone, receiving of the payments, paying of the bills, electricity bills, phone bills, anything possible, anytime, anywhere, these things are possible. This has happened because of e-banking. Low cost banking transactions. Nowadays, because of the e-banking, the transactions which place does not charge us money. Say for example, a simple example, DD, demand drafts, say for example. When the demand drafts were issued, that time some charges were there for transferring of the money from one account of the branch to the another account of the branch, depending upon the amount of money and the place where transferring the money. Now, with NEFT and RTGS, with 2 rupees, you can transfer lakhs of rupees from one place to another place. This is possible because of the e-banking. The cost of banking transactions has been reduced because of electronic banking. User friendly, those people who are used to the technology, means used to the latest type of the technology, or used to any simple technology for that purpose, you can very easily handle this online banking or e-banking that we talk about. Complete transparency. There is a complete transparency in the e-banking. You get to know about your accounts, you get to know about your balance, you get to know about, you get the messages from time to time about your account balance, about your every transaction that has happened. You can keep a follow-up of it, and you know what exactly is happening at the end of the day. How many transactions you have done in the whole day? What is the balance of your account? What is the status of your account? By sitting at home. We did not go to the bank to check all these things. Just by sitting at home, you can get the full data of your account, full information of your account. Quality banking, you also get a quality banking by sitting at home from anywhere, any place in the world. Quality banking, you get the best of the services if there is a, a proper technology if you are using. Speed banking, quickly. Those days if you want to transfer your money from, even with the DD, from one state to another, it used to take 15 days. They used to say, in Bombay, it has to go in courier and then it will be credited 15 days. But now, within few minutes, your money gets transferred from one account to another account. Portable banking, that is practiced from anywhere, any part of the world. If your bank is in Panjim, you can operate your account from Canada. You can operate your account from England. You can operate it from anywhere. Anywhere your account can be operated. You do not have to go and stand on the doors of the bank. You don't have to go to the branch of the bank to operate your account. From anywhere you can operate your account. This is the advantages, good points of the e-banking. Now, different concepts which have been introduced in e-banking. Different concepts has been introduced. So, new things which has come into the e-banking. Few things out of that we will discuss. Real time gross settlement, RTGS, something that is called as a RTGS. RTGS is a system of transferring the money from one branch of the bank or from one bank to another bank electronically, online, and that is called as RTGS, that is a real time gross settlement. There are a few things which has to be kept in mind about the RTGS. The minimum balance of amount which can be transferred here is 2 lakhs, maximum there is no limit. Minimum 2 lakhs you require to transfer the money in RTGS. Very small amount of charges are being charged. There is no service timings like from 10 to 5, nothing of that. Any time you can do this. There is nothing, no restrictions there. So, this is called as a RTGS, where the minimum amount that you can transfer is 1 lakh, no limit for maximum. Service timings are also not there, no charges there. This is called as RTGS. Next important thing, this is a form which has been used for transferring the money through RTGS. Then comes the NEFT or National Electronic Funds Transfer, very similar to RTGS. The difference here is you can start with minimum 1 rupee up to 2 lakhs of rupees. You cannot have transferring of money above 2 lakhs. Above 2 lakhs you have to go to RTGS. For NEFT, that is a National Electronic Fund Transfer, from 1 rupee to 2 lakhs you can transfer from NEFT. Again the charges are negligible, no timings, 24/7 you can do it. This is possible in the NEFT. Again the forms are available, you have to fill in the forms, attach your check or whatever you are using to transfer the money, produce it to the banker. Banks takes the responsibility of transferring the money within no time, real time that we talk about. Next talks about National Payment Corporation of India, NPCI, that we talk about. NPCI, this is called as a NPCI. NPCI is an organization for all retail payments in India. It is a umbrella organization for all the retail payments in India. Banks are not important here. Any of your bank account is linked with one umbrella, and from there you can make the payment. Like for example, there are online transfers, or say for example, there are some apps through which you can make the payment. Any bank for that purpose, you can link your any bank account with this umbrella for this particular app, and you can make the payment. That is called as a umbrella organization for making any retail payments in India. This has been formed by the Reserve Bank of India with the help of the Indian Bank Association, that has been called as Indian Bank Association. Means all the banks have come together and they have started this umbrella, under which you can make any of that. There are so many banks, so many apps through which you can make the payments, you can receive the payments. So this is been allowed, and this is called as a NPCI, that is a National Payment Corporation of India. So many apps are there to make the payments. Okay, so these apps are been linked together. All the banks are linked together under one umbrella, and through which you can make the payment. You need not be for one bank. There is not only one app. All these banks, 100 banks which are there, with these banks, these apps are linked with that, and you can make and receive the payments. So that's called as a NPCI. Okay, so the next facility provided by the electronic banking is Unified Payment Interface, that is UPI. You must have seen when you are using Google Pay, you must have seen there is something called as UPI, which is an ID for connecting your account with your bank. And this is what is called as a Unified Payment Interface. So this is a system where multiple bank accounts of the customer is been joined together with the mobile application, merging several banking features. This is called as UPI. Google Pay, say for example, a simple example of a Google Pay. In Google Pay, whenever you are making any transaction through Google Pay app, you must have seen the word UPI. It is the ID. UPI is the ID which is linking your account with a bank, and that is called as UPI, that is a Unified Payment Interface. This is another way of making payments, receiving payments through this particular app. And this is another thing where the payments and the transactions could be settled online without the personal touch between the buyer and the seller, without the personal touch between the person who is making the payments and the person who is receiving the payment. This is called as UPI. Next comes is IMPS, that is Immediate Pay Services. IMPS is also very similar to the NEFT and the RTGS. NEFT and the RTGS, where I told you that in case of the RTGS, there is a minimum amount of money that you can transfer is 2 lakhs. In NEFT, you can transfer the minimum amount of rupees is 1 rupee. Even in the IMPS, which is also the electronic transfer of money from one person to another person, or from one bank to another person, very similar to that, where again the minimum amount of transferring the money is 1 rupee. 1 rupee in case of the IMPS. And the maximum limit is here, that is 2 lakhs. You cannot have more than 2 lakhs in case of the IMPS. So here this is also the electronic transfer of money from one person to another person, or from one branch to another branch, and that is called as, it can happen through the ATM transferring of the money, because when you go to the ATM, there is a provision for transferring of the money. Even in your mobile also, if you are using even the Google Pay, you can transfer the money from one account to another account. So this is called as a IMPS, which could be used again toward transferring of the money by using the app. So that is called as a IMPS. The next thing which is there is 99 hash. Another thing which has been used for making of the payment, another app which has been used for transferring of the money, which is called as a 99 hash. So this is another type of the app to reach to every common man across the country. This banking service has been launched. Banking customer can avail the services by dialing 99 hash, a common number across all telecom services. This is similar to the Google Pay or any other payment devices where you are transferring the money by using 99 hash. Also you can transfer the money from one person to another person, from one account to another account. Okay, so this is again launched in order to provide these facilities to the common people. in order to provide the facilities of transferring the money to the common people by using the internet banking or the e-banking, that is electronic banking, that's called as a 99 hash. So the next facility provided by the electronic banking is the merchant banking. Merchant banking means the facility provided to the customers as an additional services in order to perform many of the functions which they cannot do it on their own, and they are charged some amount of commission, they are charged some amount of charges for doing these specialized services. It can be underwriting of the shares, it can be raising of the funds, it can be registration of the companies. There are many services, specialized services which are been provided by these merchant bankers to the companies and to the customers, for which they are being charged certain amount of commission or certain amount of charges. This is called as a merchant banking. So what are the services basically provided by this particular merchant banking? Servicing and sponsoring of the issues. When company issues the shares, and these shares has to be sold in the market, or the demand has to be created for these shares, it is the merchant bankers who take the responsibility of sponsoring these issues. Helps in mergers and the acquisition, mergers of the companies. There should be some agent, somebody as a liquidator who should take the responsibility of doing all the formalities of merging of the companies. Or maybe an agent is required for merging of the companies, bringing the two companies and making it as a one single company. So doing those formalities, doing all the documentation is the responsibility of these merchant bankers. Arranging fixed deposits. Many times companies require some deposits, public deposits we are talking about. Because on the basis of the public deposits, sometimes the fixed deposits helps to buy the fixed assets. Now arranging for these fixed deposits for the companies, for the customers, it is a responsibility of the merchant bankers, for which they will charge commission. Next comes is in the helps in the portfolio management. Portfolio management related to the underwriting. They act as underwriters, act as an agent for selling the shares of the company, and they charge the underwriting commission for this. There are many things which are related to the companies, for the development of the companies, for the growth of the companies, for the registration of the companies, which has been done by the merchant bankers. So this is another electronic banking facility provided by the bankers. Next comes is the internet banking. The internet plays a very important role nowadays everywhere, and also in the banking sector. This is something called as online banking, where the banking transaction takes place online. It might be applying to the loans, it might be opening of the accounts, it might be processing of the loan forms, or any of the banking transactions. Any of the banking activities is been carried out online without the personal contact between the customers. Online transactions are been possible, online banking activities are possible. No need of the bankers and the customers sitting together or coming in the personal contact in order to do any of the transactions, which is called as internet banking. The advantages of this internet banking is it reduces the cost of transactions. I have said it earlier that when there is no personal contact between the banker and the customer does not have to go to the branch of the bank, and from the home, from wherever they are, they can do the transaction. The cost of the transaction is always reduced. 24-hour banking transactions. It is like 24/7 banking transaction. There are no holidays when it comes to the online transactions. There are no breaks in the working hours when it comes to the online transactions. So anytime, anywhere, you can do the banking transaction. It increases the customer locality and quality and confidence, which means confidence of the customers is increased because customer can do transactions anytime. You don't have to wait and take the time out to go to do any of the transactions. Whenever you are free, when the time is available, you can do the banking transactions, and that's why the confidence among the customers has been increased. The precious time can be used for the other work, other better work than going and standing in the queues and trying to do the banking transactions. So here the confidence has been developed, easy procedure for applications. At the same time, applying online, maybe for the bank balance, maybe for opening the account, maybe for any other transactions, you can do it online, where you can just log into the website of the banks, and any of the procedure could be done online without writing something on the paper in a black and white, or without going and standing in the queue outside the banks, or without doing any of the personal documentations. This is possible, and that's why it has been accepted by the customers all over the universe. Next thing comes is mobile banking. Everybody has the mobile. Everybody uses the mobile. With the help of the mobile, banking activities could be done, and it has been very much accepted by the people all over the world. Banking transactions are possible with the help of the mobile phones, and this is called as a mobile banking. Banking business is possible with mobile phone. You don't have to use any other device. With the mobile, wherever you are, in whatever condition you are, in whatever situation you are, you can do your transactions. Mobile phone users can have access to the bank information. At the same time, you can also have an access to the bank information, all the information about the bankers, bank and other deposits, everything you can get it through the mobile phones. Emergencies of mobile banking is a huge success. Nowadays, if you try to see, people with the help of the mobile phones, any transaction, any type of the banking activity is possible, and that's why it is a huge success in the banking sector. Paying for travel tickets is growing at a great speed. Making any of the spot transactions, maybe paying of the travel tickets, making payments of online purchases, or maybe making payments of the bills, electricity bills, phone bills. All this is possible with the help of the mobile today. You don't have to go and stand in any of the queues in any of the departments to make any of the payments, which has become very easy and simple by sitting, standing anywhere, wherever you are, and you can settle your transaction. So it has become more and more simpler and easy to every human being. Next comes is the precautions to be taken by the company secretary while corresponding with banks. We have spoken all this time about the banks, different types of the bank accounts and all that, what a secretary has to do. Now we have come back to the company secretary. When we are talking about a company secretary is a person who is qualified as a company secretary, who has passed an examination conducted by the Institute of the Company Secretaries of India, who is a member of the Institute of the Company Secretaries of India, who has a qualifications, who has a knowledge about the accountancy, who has a knowledge about the law, who has a knowledge about the economics, who has a knowledge about the commerce, and who is known as a public relation officer. A secretary, while corresponding with the bankers, has to take certain precautions, because secretary is an administrative officer of the company. Secretary is a PRO of the company. Secretary on behalf of the company make correspondence with the banks, and that's why due care should be taken. Precautions should be taken while making any correspondence with the banker. So what are the points that should be kept in mind? What are the precautions should be taken by the secretary while making correspondence with the bankers? The first thing, while writing any of the letter to the banker, there should be clarity. It speaks about the clarity. It should be clear and simple. Simple language should be used. There should not be any ambiguous words or the confusing words should be used in the letter. When secretary is writing any letter to the banker, to the bank, simple language, clear language, the language which is easy to understand should be written, no ambiguity, no jargon should be used, no confusing words should be used in the letter. There should be clarity in the letter. Clarity should be very, very clear, easy to understand. That should be kept in mind by the secretary. Second thing is correct and complete. Second is correct and complete. Whatever information you are giving in the letter, whatever information that you are giving through the correspondence, it should be correct, correct data, complete data, correct figures, complete figures. That is very important, because that will speak about your personality, how much you are serious about this particular correspondence. And that's why clear and correct and complete information, whether the data or the figures, it should be correct and complete should be given, because on the basis of that, banker will able to take the decision. If you are not giving the correct data, if you are not giving the correct figures, then the bankers will also have a confusion whether to, if you are asking for a loan, whether to sanction your loan or not to sanction your loan. That's why it is very essential that you stick to the correct and the complete information. Confidential, it is very important that secretary should be very confidential. If, say for example, some information of the company should not be leaked out to anybody, secretary should always take precautions not to leak out the secret matters, secret data of the company. Even though you are writing a letter to the banker, see that you maintain secrecy about the company. You try to be confidential about your organization in which you are working. That care should be taken, the due care must be taken. That is very, very important. It should be confidential. Courtesy, very important, that while you are writing the letter, the language that you are using, courteous language should be used. The tone that you are using in writing the letter, courteous tone should be used, because that will create an impression of the company on the banker. A good impression has to be created. If you are using harsh words, if you are using some not a good language, then that can have a bad impact on the company, bad effect of the company. So because of that, courtesy should be seen in the letter writing. Checking for errors. When the secretary is writing letters, if there are any errors, it should be checked, it should be verified, it should be double checked. You cannot write the letters, you cannot send the letters with the errors, because that will create a bad impression on the company and also on the secretary. So secretary has to be very careful while writing the letters, while sending the letters, or while checking the errors. See that you check the errors and finally correction of the errors. And if you know that there are errors in the letter, see that you correct the errors before you deliver the letter, before you send the letters. If you are sending the letter with the errors which are already there, errors which are already existing, then that can create a bad impact on the reputation of the company. That can create a bad impact on the reputation of the company, and because of that, due care must be taken. Precautions should be taken by the secretary while writing letters to the bankers, because you have to create your impression. You have to create your goodwill. You have to create your reputation when you are corresponding with the banker. So next thing which comes in the banking sector is a letter of credit. Letter of credit is always used in the international trade, foreign trade, where buyer is from a home country and seller is from the foreign country, and the transaction takes place between the buyer and seller. Letter of credit is a letter issued by the banker from the home country to the party from the foreign country, guaranteeing about the credit worthiness of the buyer, guaranteeing the foreign trader that after producing the documents, this particular party will be making the payment, and the bank takes the guarantee of making the payment. This letter is called as a letter of credit, or letter of guarantee, or letter giving the credit worthiness of the buyer from the home country. Because this is very, very important. Unless and until the party from the foreign country who is selling the goods to the customer in the home country is confident about the party, he will never sell the goods to the person in the home country. He will never deliver the goods to the person in the home country. And because of that, somebody has to give the guarantee. And it's a bank which gives the guarantee about the buyer to the person, to the seller in the foreign country by issuing a letter of credit under the letterhead of the company, and that is called as a letter of credit, which is again very important in the international trade. Without issuing the letter of credit, the international transactions may not happen, may not take place, and because of that, letter of credit has to be issued by the banker. Now, which are the parties which are involved in the letter of credit? The first is the importer or the opener. Importer means the person who is a buyer or who is importing the goods from the foreign country and in whose favor letter of credit is issued. Now, say for example, there is a buyer from Panjim who is buying goods from, say for example, Australia. Now, this importer or opener means that particular party from Panjim who is buying the goods, who is a buyer, and in whose favor the letter is issued by one bank, maybe State Bank of India from Panjim, giving the guarantee of the creditworthiness of this person from Panjim. So, this importer, this buyer is called as an importer or an opener. Importer's bank. Now, the SBI, State Bank of India from Panjim, who issues this letter of credit in favor of this buyer from Panjim is called as an importer's bank. This bank issues this letter of credit saying that this particular person from Panjim is a trader buying goods from so and so countries for so many years, and he has a good credit in the society, and he will always be ready to make the payments once the goods are being delivered to his place. A letter has to be given, signed by the banker, giving the guarantee of this particular person, and that is called as a importer's bank. Exporter or a beneficiary. Exporter means the party from Australia who will be selling the goods to this person, who is a seller, who will be supplying the goods, who wants the guarantee of this particular person, and who will be receiving this letter of credit. That is called as a exporter or a beneficiary. And finally, the exporter's bank or the negotiating banks means the bank in the foreign country, a negotiating bank in the foreign country, who is also in between these parties to accept this letter of credit through which this transaction will be completed. This payment will be made through this particular bank, and that is called as a negotiating bank, a bank in the foreign country, exporter's bank in the foreign country. That is called as a negotiating bank, which will be accepting the payment from this particular party in order to complete the transaction. So, there are 4 parties in the letter of credit. That is the importer, who is called as the opener. Second one is the importer's bank in the home country. Third is the exporter from the foreign country who will be selling the goods. And fourth is a bank in the foreign country who will be accepting the payments. So, these are 4 parties involved in this international trade and in using the letter of credit, which is again very important in the international trade and in the banking sector. Next comes the final thing which comes is the drafting of the letters. This particular lesson, there is a practical work to be done, and that is the letters to be drafted by the secretary to the banks. Different types of the letters has to be drafted to the secretary by the banks. Now, for drafting the letters, what is the format to be followed for drafting the letters? In different circumstances, letters will be drafted. But to draft the letters, the basic format which has to be followed is, first in this letter there should be heading of the company. Secretary is writing the letters to the bank, and it has to be always written on the letterhead of the company, where on top there will be letterhead, name of the company, with the address of the company, with the registration number of the company, email of the company, website of the company, and the logo of the company, which will become at the center of this particular letter. center of the letter where the name, everything, details of the company will appear here along with the registration number. Then after that comes the date on which you are drafting the letter. The date has to be written. Then comes the reference number, the reference of this letter, to what reference you have writing this letter, that has to be written. Then the inside address means the to address, to whom you are writing. If say for example, if you are writing this letter to the branch manager, State Bank of India, Panjim, then this will be that to address, which is very, very important, because this letter you are sending to someone. So this inside address comes. Then comes the subject of the letter. Subject means in brief you are writing about the body of the letter, the subject of the letter. What you will be writing in this particular letter, what will be the total matter you will be writing in this letter. In brief, in one line you are writing this subject. Say for example, you are applying for the loan. Then later on you will be writing in detail, but here you are writing application for the loan. So at a first instance, bank manager comes to know, okay, this is about the loan. The proposal is about the loan. So that is the subject. Then comes the salutation. Respected sir, dear sir. It is a salutation, greeting somebody before writing the letter, respecting someone before writing the letter. Basically, you are creating an environment before writing the letter. Okay, so that is a salutation. Then comes the body of the letter, the main part of the letter. In the body of the letter, there are three subparts. First is the introduction, where you introduce about what you want to write. Introduction of the letter. Second body of the letter, second part of it, you are actually writing about the loan, why you want the loan, what you are going to do with the loan, actual part of this particular proposal, and the end will be the concluding part of this particular letter, body of the letter. So it always divided into the three parts. Then comes the complimentary close. It is about the closing the letter, maybe in form of yours faithfully, yours sincerely. So you are concluding the letter. Then comes the signature of the secretary who is writing this letter. Signature is required. Now since the emails system has come, signatures are not written because it is going through the registered email of the company. So, but the signature, if it is a hard copy, is going the signature of the person who is supposed to sign this particular letter, authorized signatory of the company, stamp of the company, and if there are any enclosures, some type of the letters you require the enclosures. If you are opening an account with the bank, then the resolution of opening an account of the board is required. So, you will going to enclose it. So, you have to write it here, enclose, resolution of the board to open the account. If you are something else you are enclosing, you have to write it there and enclose it to this particular application. So, this is the format basically you are following to write the letters. Now, what are the different circumstances for which secretary write letters to the bankers? Why, in what circumstances secretary will write letters? There are different circumstances where secretary will have to write letters to the banker. First thing, secretary will write the letter to the banker to open the bank account. When a company is started, a new company has been formed, and you want to open an account in a particular bank, you have to write a letter with the resolution of the board that we want to open a current account in your bank. This will be the one circumstance where a secretary may write letter to the bank. So, that is the one circumstance. Second, to act as a banker for the issue of shares. Secretary may also write the letter to act as a banker for the issue of the shares. When the company decides to issue the shares, to accept the application money, to accept the call money for everything, or accept the applications, you required one bank, a counter of the bank. So, in that case, secretary will write a letter to the banker saying that we have decided or we have resolved to issue the shares to the public. So, please be kind enough to act as a banker to our issue. So, to accept all the applications, accept the money, you be there, you take the charge of it. So, that is another circumstance where the letter will be written to the banker by the secretary. Third is to underwrite the issue of shares. Sometimes when the company is not that popular to sell its own shares, it gives the responsibility to the banker. You also take care, you take the responsibility of selling our shares to the public, because banks have many customers. Banks can easily sell their shares by contacting the customers. So that's why bank has been appointed as an underwriter, as an agent to sell the shares of the company, where bank will be charging commission to them, which is called as an underwriting commission. So in this case, secretary may write letter to the banker. Next is to stop payment of the check. Say for example, you have issued the check, and say for example, you have realized that you have issued it to the wrong person, or the wrong amount is written, or say for example, you have misplaced the check and you are worried that this check might go for the payment. So in that case, you may write a letter to the banker saying that immediately have a stop payment to this check number so and so. Letter has to be written by the secretary for the stop payment of the check. To issue the balance certificate, many times company wants the balance certificate. Balance certificate in the sense, how much of amount of money is there in the credit balance of our account. Sometime monthly, every month, on the 30th or the 31st of every month, bank asks for the balance certificate, which means how much of money is left, how much of money is in the credit of our account. So to have a record of it, company secretary will write a letter to the banker, and banker officially will reply to it. Next comes is to provide the overdraft facility. I told you that every businessman or a company have their current account. And in order to have an overdraft facility, I told you that overdraft facility means overdrawing the account, withdrawing more than the credit balance of the account. So here again you will have to write the letter to the banker. Banker on its own will never give you overdraft facility. You have to request to the bank for the overdraft facility. You have to write a letter to the banker asking for the overdraft facility. Next comes is to issue the letter of credit. I told you that an importer in the foreign trade, importer always require a letter of credit to show his credit worthiness to the seller in the foreign country. So in that case, bank will have to write the company will have to write a letter. If this company is an importing company, it's buying something from the foreign country, maybe it's buying machinery, or maybe it's buying raw material, or maybe it's buying something else from the foreign country. To show its credit worthiness to that foreign party, a bank should give a letter talking about the credit worthiness of this particular party. But for that, company will have to write a letter to that particular bank. Finally, company will also provide information about the status of the customer. Many times, if the company wants to know the status of one customer, if the company want to sell something to a particular customer, to a particular buyer, and the company wants to know what is the status of this particular customer in the market, whether this customer is a trustworthy customer, whether this customer is a credit-worthy customer. For that, if the company wants to know about this particular customer, then company may ask for that information from the banker. Company will have to write a letter. Okay, so these are the different circumstances where company will write letter to the banker. I mean, the company secretary will write letter to the banker for the different requests for getting the information for stop payment of the check and all these things. So this is about the secretarial correspondence with the banks, and secretary make correspondence with the bank in the different circumstances. So I have come to the end of this chapter, that is the secretarial correspondence with the banks, where we have learned about the banks in detail, what banks do, what is the role of the bankers, what are the latest developments in the banks, what is the care, precautions should be taken by the company secretary to make correspondence with the bankers, and what are the precautions where company secretary write letters to the bankers. So we have learned everything in detail about the role of the secretary when it comes to the banks, and about the banks in detail. So we have reached to the last part of this lesson, that is secretarial correspondence with banks. You have learned in detail about the banking sector, about the accounts, about the deposits, about the different types of the banks, and in detail about the banking sector. So, this is what about the secretarial correspondence with the banks. End of this chapter, and thanks.
Prudent Scholars, powered by Lupin Pharmaceuticals.
अब आपकी सुरक्षा आपके हाथों में। ल्यूपी सेफ हैंड सैनिटाइजर, आपका और चेन्नई सुपर किंग्स का फर्स्ट लाइन ऑफ डिफेंस। अब आपकी सुरक्षा आपके हाथों में। ल्यूपी सेफ हैंड सैनिटाइजर, आपका और चेन्नई सुपर किंग्स का फर्स्ट लाइन ऑफ डिफेंस। अब आपकी सुरक्षा आपके हाथों में। ल्यूपी सेफ हैंड सैनिटाइजर, आपका और चेन्नई सुपर किंग्स का फर्स्ट लाइन ऑफ डिफेंस।